All right. Well, welcome to the April presentation of the Cancer Prevention and Wellness Series. I'm Haley Bouchard, and I'm excited to be here with Jeff Holland to talk about the unique health benefits associated with drumming.
I'm glad to be here too. Oh, we've got a great presentation planned for you, and we appreciate you joining us today.
Absolutely. And before we jump in any further, I would like to take the opportunity to say thank you to the Cancer Survivor Park Alliance for including us in this program and supporting us in gathering once a month inside the park for our music and movement event. Every time we make good friends and memories.
So let's jump right in. I'd like to introduce myself. My name's Jeff Holland, and my main company is Drum for Work. And in turn, that started a nonprofit called Our World Festival. And that's what kind of supports our drumming in the park. We love to bring enough drums for everybody that shows up. Of course, we add percussion instruments. So we normally travel there with enough for about 100 people. So we have plenty of room to grow, and all you have to do is bring yourself. I've been doing this I've been leading drum circles for about 30 years, and Drum for Work developed almost over 20 years ago. And then Our World Festival, the nonprofit, started about 10 years ago. And I'm also a workshop facilitator. I'm a classically trained percussionist, so I have a background in orchestral music. So we try to keep everything simple and fun, and we love doing it on the last Friday of each month.
And Jeff, that's kind of where I met you, just a serendipitous meeting by establishing this music and movement program for the Cancer Survivor Park. And I'm Haley. This is the other half on the movement side to this music and movement program. I'm the owner of NetGood LLC, just a company out there to promote happy, healthy humans by connecting cognitive science to holistic practices. Right now, I'm serving as acting executive director at the Terra Nova Center up at Cedar Mountain. And we're looking for more community partners or just volunteers that want to do the same. Immersion in nature and offering these good common sense activities just to everyday people. So Jeff, we want this to feel kind of the same way that you want this presentation to feel the same way any of your programs kind of feel. If you want to explain kind of your philosophy behind things.
Well, we want to make sure everyone's comfortable at first. That's one of our key goals when we're inviting people into the drum circles. And this is a quote that I say all the time to try to get people to settle in. Some people aren't sure exactly about what they should play or how they should even approach the instruments. And my goal is always just to tell them, play what you feel what you play. If you're smiling, you're doing it the right way. I love seeing that instantaneous change that people go through. It's like a metamorphosis. They come in sometimes with serious faces, and as soon as they start to touch the drum, you see the smile start to emerge. They start to look around. They realize they're connected with other people and their rhythm, and it just changes. It's a mental change, it's a physical change, and there's a lot of spiritual change that goes along with it. And we see it happen every time without fail. You can see the healing power of the drum just from the first stroke on. And it's never hard to get people to start playing. The hardest thing is to get people to stop playing when it's time to go.
You add a lot of that healing energy into the space too. I can tell, even starting this presentation, hearing your voice, I'm starting to calm down and I'm getting into the fun of it. So over the next hour, we're just going to share a little bit of our personal experiences and some of our clinical findings around these 4 topics. We know that music therapy reduces anxiety, releases negative feelings, and improves the quality of life. We know that drumming boosts the immune system and increases the NKC cell activity. We know that drumming communities offer a unique wellness opportunity and will offer an introduction to vibrational energy and the process to prepare for sound immersion and therapeutic focus.
The first thing that happens is kind of obvious. We set it at 5 o'clock on Friday for a reason. That's kind of the end of the work week. People are bringing different intentions, a lot of bringing their stress and anxiety with them. And that's what we see melt away first. And that's the emergence of the smile, is when you're drumming, it just you kind of let everything else go for a moment. When you're focusing on playing music, it really does bring you into the moment. Some other things that uh, it's an emotional release. And so if you have any pent up feelings, it's a great way to let it out. Drumming has been used to uh, not only in the stress reduction benefits, but it's just a means of creative expression. And the greatest things about it, bringing a group together, you're working toward common goals. You can feel the vibrations. We'll talk about how the vibrations affect the body later on. And there's so many ways that it improves your quality of life. People underestimate the power of a drum circle, but we see that change, the less anxiety, the camaraderie among people that are friends or people that you've never met. We're all working toward the same goal of keeping the rhythms going. And there's so many health benefits that we'll get into that are sort of behind the scenes, behind the glass, and those are happening no matter what you're playing. Some people just like to sit and absorb the vibrations for a little bit, but any way that you're there, it's gonna produce a benefit.
And I'll say that you called it right. People do underestimate, because clinically we know that music therapy is effective. And according to this study here, 2020 meta-analysis over 19 trials they looked at, published in the Journal of Advanced Nursing, stated, compared with standard care, music therapy can significantly increase the score of overall quality of life in patients with cancer. In addition, music therapy was found to be more effective in decreasing the score of anxiety, depression, and pain.
It really does. It lowers uh, pain in the body. It actually not only the endorphin release, but it blocks some of the pain receptors. And I know that from drumming, my whole life. You go through the stage of where it may be a little sensitive on your hands, and then after a few minutes, you forget about that. And people are dealing with all kinds of pain, physical and emotional. And that's one thing that the drumming does, is it gives them that release, but at the same time, it starts to build their confidence. And there's other things, I think about it kind of like a break from daily life. We talked about how music brings you into the moment, but I also think about it kind of like recess. That was always my favorite class in school. And so, there's a time to study, there's a time to focus about what these benefits can actually do for people. But when you're playing, it's like being on the playground. You're playing with your friends. You can kind of play with this group of friends, or you can let your ear wander and play with that group of friends that's a little further over. We use a special type of drums that you see behind me. And one of the things that make them special is that they're lower volume. Traditional drums can be really loud, and sometimes that can make people uncomfortable if they're in the middle of something that's too loud for them. And so we specially selected these. This is actually my signature line of drums from Meinl. And the name of them is great too. They're called Viva Rhythm, Life Rhythm. And that's what we do with them, is we share and we motivate people with the rhythms of life. That's one of my favorite taglines. So we'll get into some of the health aspects in just a second.
Yeah, and recess is a perfect analogy. I told you that last week. I definitely feel like recess every time I show up to a drum circle to play these Viva Rhythm drums. But on the other side of this, what I've come to understand is a unique point here, or not unique, but really the key point is it breaks the cycle of chronic stress. And that is the key to boosting the immune system. So if you look at these two photos here, these are just a basic visual to remind yourself of what happens to the body when you're stressed. On the left represents what happens when you're exposed to a single stressor. We'll use the example of a Zoom presentation. The stressful event starts with the anticipation phase when cortisol is released, and it causes your heart rate to go up, your blood pressure to rise, your muscles to tighten, and a whole slew of unpleasant things until you hit the plateau and you actually get to finish this Zoom presentation. And ideally, you turn the corner and you start to enter in this recovery phase until your body is back to baseline. That's what should happen when you're exposed to stress. But what oftentimes is people don't give themselves that opportunity to return back to baseline. And this stress just compounds into this cycle of chronic stress, pushing our immune system function into the danger, unideal zone. So come into this drum circle to relieve some stress and bring yourself back to baseline is absolute the key to these health benefits that we can find.
So going all the way back to Dr. Barry Bittman, he realized that there was a healing power in the drum. Another friend of mine, Dr. Robert Lawrence Friedman, we'll show you a link to his book, The Healing Power of the Drum. And he did a lot of interviews with Dr. Bittman. Dr. Bittman started some clinical studies, and at the end, they realized that the control groups that weren't active doing anything versus some of the active music groups had a boost of the NKC cells, the white blood cells. And at some points, I want to say there were a couple of different studies. One was about 30%, and one went up to 70% in increase. I learned about that. What really brought me into the healing power was way back in 1995. Mickey Hart drummed a little bit. His father had passed away. His father was a drummer, and he came home to visit his mom and drummed a little bit on his father's old practice pad. And his mother said, oh, she thought his father was home. Now, his mother was beginning to suffer from dementia. And Mickey realized immediately that that drumming connection, that rhythmic connection, brought back the positive memories, the happy memories of being with her father. And he went on to work with Parkinson's patients. And he petitioned the House of Congress and the Senate in the end of '95 on the healing power using with those two specific groups, dementia or Alzheimer's and Parkinson's. From there, Bittman introduced his research studies. My friend and wonderful facilitator, Christine Stevens, partnered and started to release a lot of this information. And then my international guild, the Drum Circle Facilitators Guild, just recently published a compilation of a lot of these articles. And we'll share that with you at the end. That's called the Rhythm Research Resource page. Now, technically, you're supposed to be in the Drum Circle Facilitators Guild to access this page, but we have a special link where you can see some of the just wonderful articles that, and it's still growing, you know, that we're still doing research. I ask people usually at the beginning, I'll ask them, how are you feeling? If you could put it into one word. And then I usually repeat that at the end during the closing. And it's amazing the transformation that happens. And so people come in with all sorts of health conditions. Like we said, they come in with different intentions. Some drum for themselves. Some are sending out positive rhythms to the community and to the world. We know that I say sometimes the power of a drum circle can extend for hundreds, if not thousands of miles. And it just depends on how far the person that was in the drum circle plans to travel, because it kind of changes a lot in your body. And we exude that energy. We take that energy with us and we share it, you know, in so many different ways. With Drum for Work, we do corporate team building. And there's definitely an underlying health aspect to what we do, bringing people together. We use communication, connection, creativity, collaboration, celebration. Those are some of my favorite C words for the corporate meetings, but it's really the underlying health benefits that have the long-term effects.
Yeah, and I'll give you some love here. This is the Barry Bittman study that you were or one of them that you were mentioning. And in this one, they specifically say, using a drum facilitator to help promote this wellness through these intervention types, like a drum circle, is what's effective. This one here did a whole preliminary findings of just trying to pick out the method of their intervention, and that's what they ended up going with. And as you've said multiple times, it goes beyond just an overall improvement of quality of life or reduction of stress. There's a lot of other benefits to drumming that people can get. Would you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, I just saw your other bullet points. First, yeah, it's just a fun exercise. It gets people moving, it gets them motivated. Uh, I tell people, even after we finish the drum circles, keep your rhythms going. And I'm not really talking about the drum rhythms. I'm talking about the biological rhythms. So, it just keeps people in motion. The increased brain plasticity is something that we know that the one side of the brain creates the repetitive rhythm, daily tasks that we go through, and then we have a creative side of the brain. But more recent studies have proven with EEG readings and a lot of some of the clinical studies are starting to show that we have activity in different parts of the brains. Not only does it fire both hemispheres at the same time, but it also the frontal is the creative thinking. It inspires memory recall. And so when you see your brain on a screen, while you're drumming, there's all this electronic activity. Lights are just going off everywhere. And then I guess the continuation of that is the increased or improved motor skills, that it's eye-hand coordination. You have to think about what you're playing, and then it's eye-hand when you're moving, you're thinking about the dance moves. I tell people not to think about it too much, because sometimes that can get you in trouble when you're drumming. Just let yourself go. And the greatest thing, that confidence in community. First, it builds confidence in yourself. It's that means of self-expression, but you're being supported by the group. And then at the same time, what you're playing is supporting the group. So it's a win-win for everybody involved, that you're getting the healing benefits and you're providing the healing benefits at the same time, simultaneously.
And in the example of our music and movement event, you get to do it in a beautiful park along the Reedy River, making new friends. So all of this to say, this was a big primary motivation for establishing the music and movement event, because I can't think of a better way to celebrate the incredible strength of the survivor community than moving and grooving with a bunch of drummers and dancers.
Well, what my other question is, do the drummers inspire the dancers to dance, or do the dancers inspire the drummers to drum? What do you think, Haley?
I think you said it best, and I'll let you take it from there.
I do think it's reciprocal. We're feeding off of the energy of each other, and just feel amazing positive energy. And like you said, in that space, even before we met, when they first started building that amphitheater, it wasn't even finished. And I took my handpan. This is one of my favorite instruments. I played for a video there, and I really didn't even remember this until reviewing the video later. This was 4 years before we met, and to the date, because the video was time stamped. And I said at the end of the video, there will be healing music in this space, and having no idea what was foreshadowing in the future. But music is it's so multifaceted. I mentioned that we use it for communication, connection, collaboration, all of those, but it's been used for thousands of years to bring communities together. In the villages in West Africa, in Guinea particularly, some of my favorite teachers. In fact, Bola Kande, who's currently my djembe teacher, visited us on about the third or fourth meeting that we had. Surprised me. Bola Kande does not show up at drum circles. He's a professional West African drummer, and really he is I think since Mamadi Keita passed away, Bolakata Kande has now assumed the role of the best djembe player in the world. And when I saw him come into the top of the amphitheater, he just listened for a little bit, but then I saw him smile. I saw him start to dance a little bit, and it took a little encouraging, but he brought his djembe down. And the thing that I've learned is through the stories of my teachers and my travels, I've actually heard this happen. Very specific rhythms are used in villages. And throughout history, long before the internet or the newspaper or television, the way people would find out what was going on in their village is they would listen for the rhythm. And can I show you a couple of rhythms real quick? I,
Please do. I thought that was cool. Yeah.
I know we talked about this, but I happen to have a djembe set up. If you were waking up one morning and you heard this rhythm coming from a hut near the edge of the village, now that may not inspire us as Americans a whole lot other than the moving and grooving, but that Madon rhythm, that's the name of it, is it's the same as this. Where would you hear this? Dun 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 dun. Dun 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 dun.
So that's their version of the wedding song.
It's the wedding song, so you can recognize it. Or if I was playing Janza, which is another famous rhythm, that's the same as this song. Now I won't sing it. See if you can see if you can interpret the melody. Da 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 da.
Yep.
Da.
Let's incorporate that on my 30th birthday.
Yeah, you would actually you would hear that rhythm and you would know whether to buy a wedding present or a birthday present. So this is how the community comes together. Now in the West African village, they would play that sometimes for 3 days. Now, not the same drummers and dancers. They would rotate in, they would play for a little bit. Other people would hear it and they would come by and they would get the message. And so one of the messages that we always send, you know, we always use a heartbeat rhythm, and I believe that that's the most important rhythm of life. We usually close with that. When you're doing your ribbon ceremony, we move into the heartbeat rhythm from there. And it's just something that everybody relates to. As I've traveled around the world studying a lot of these traditional rhythms, I found the heartbeat in many different places. Sometimes it's on the front, like we do in the park, on a heartbeat. 3, 4. Then we fill it in. The mild version, some like it medium, and some like it spicy. But the other rhythm that I was thinking about is a welcome rhythm from Nigeria called fanga. And the words fanga actually means welcome. Alafia is happiness or family. It's kind of a universal term. And then ashe, ashe is everything around us. So if you put them together, it means welcome to our big happy family. But what my teacher, Babatunde Olatunji, used this as a message of peace. So it settles people in. Everybody can play the heartbeat, but we mix it up a little bit. Fanga puts that rhythm, the heartbeat rhythm, in the middle. I like to play village rhythms. And it just provides a nice, comfortable space for everybody to join in. It gives them a kind of a grid to play around, but we don't necessarily teach cultural rhythms here. Once again, we want people to be able to play what they feel what they play. There's other things there's other classes and workshops that I do around town where I elaborate on these rhythms. But for the music and movement community, what we're really trying to do is just bring people together, share some positive energy, highlight, of course, cancer survivorship. There's been quite a few cancer survivors that have stood up, and some unrecognized, and many people drumming there are actually sending those positive rhythms out to others in the community that need it and may not be able to come and drum with us. So that's why we need more people to come and drum. We need a more powerful rhythm for healing, not only in our community, but just all around the world. Our world needs more healing.
Yeah, I'll share this from my perspective, because you do have that facilitator radar, and we'll go into that in a second, where you help cater the experience to the drummers that are actually there. But I get a good view of those that are just passing through, or they've come to visit for their own survivorship support. And the the facial expressions that I get to see when people aren't expecting the music and movement event to be going on and they're just there for another reason. It's just delight. Oftentimes they're dancing off in the corner before they get brave enough to join us. But just us being there is promoting a little extra something. But talk about what you're able to do from a facilitator side to even amplify the experience with how you're reading and the idea of bringing anxiety down with the rhythms.
Sure. The first thing that we do is the drum call. A lot of the times, you're right, people are apprehensive or they're up on the bridge and they're like, I'm just going to watch this time. And so we try to get there a little early and go ahead and get the drums out so they're convenient for people. Then I always do a drum call. And that's just basically me playing a really loud djembe to get people's attention, to bring them in. When people come in, that's where I start to analyze a little bit. I think, they look like they might be having a rough day, or, oh, wow, there's kids here. So the energy is real high. So I have to balance that. And as a facilitator, one of the things that I do, one of our little secrets is the rumble. It's just a way to make noise together, but we create dynamics with it. I can bring the rumble down to a whisper or up to a roar, and we can find that volume level that's comfortable for everybody. And then when we're playing, I listen again, and if the rhythm gets a little bit wonky, that's my job with radar to fix it. I do things, I think about this in kind of an artistic form. I sculpt. And so sometimes I'll split the group in half and I'll have one half play, and then we'll switch to the other half, and then I'll split it into quarters. Or sometimes if I hear individuals that are playing maybe a really quiet instrument, then I'll highlight that instrument. I'll ask them to continue to play, and then I'll bring the rest of the group down or stop the rest of the group, and I'll highlight a person or a group. A lot of the times I'll pick 3 or 4 people because I never want to put somebody on the spot. Not everybody like me likes to play a drum solo. And so it's all about using the radar to figure out, what does the circle need? How can we make music together? Our end goal is not performance. Our end goal is really just to create rhythm and movement together. And this happens in other drum circles, but the facilitator makes a difference. If you go to Asheville, there are leaders, but they're all kind of drumming over each other, and you're either going to jump into their rhythm. As a facilitator, I make sure that the rhythm is comfortable for everybody. I try not to make it too complicated. I try to keep it simple. And that way, from the youngest drummer to the oldest drummer, everybody feels like they can find their part and fit in. I mean, that's what it's really about, is finding your rhythm and figuring out how to fit in. It's a metaphor for life as well as a drum circle.
Yeah, and I'll say that was very important for me and Susie Kim, another big supporter of the drum circle come into Greenville, is to find that sense of community, make it feel safe, make it feel inclusive, and all of those things that you do. I mean, even the stop, back to the beat, and letting other people say back to the beat. That's what's making friendships. That's what's building confidence. That's what's making you feel like you're part of something larger than yourself. We're all
Empowerment.
exactly.
It empowers the person that says it, and then you see people light up around that. It brings everybody together.
It is. It is. So if drumming is allowed, get all your energy out. There's a softer side to this whole music therapy, and vibrational energy isn't there.
The vibrational energy, it affects our body in different places. The drum circle has a spectrum of sound from the lowest notes to the highest notes, and we play a lot in the middle in the vocal range. And those are part of the range that we use to tone in our body. This is another way to heal, and I know there's some studies using toning and chanting. When we look at Tibetan monks, Buddhist monks that use chanting, we've associated those tones with chakra energy centers in the body. But just the idea of what you're hearing in the drum circle goes from, the low notes affect the larger places in the body. You can feel those low notes in your chest or in your stomach, And then the medium range you can kind of feel in your shoulders and your knees. And then the high sounds, blocks and bells, tambourines, shakers, those are the icing on the cake. But those high sounds also affect smaller places in the body. I've heard from people suffering with arthritis or pains in certain places of their body. We can actually dial the frequency in to work on just that part of the body. And in the medical field, they're doing this down to literally a microscopic level. Uh, the sound immersion, when I'm doing the Sonic Energy Tour, I'm really throwing a lot of ideas out there, because one thing that I found is that sound affects people in different ways. You can have two people, and I have charts that uh, show the frequency range of different organs. For instance, there's a note for the heart. But it's not just a specific note. It's a note range, because each person, based on their biological makeup and body mass and a lot of variables involved, are affected in different ways. And so when we're talking about vibrational energy, we have to experiment, and I have to ask the clients. I have to say, are you feeling it now? Do you feel it there? Do you feel a little tickle? And if you do, then that's where it's working. So the therapeutic process is still a work in progress. It's kind of like medical practice. We have to keep doing our research. We have to keep practicing to find the ways that heal the most. And we started the Sonic Energy Tour based on the elements. So the basic elements of air, water, earth, fire, and of course ether. We have instruments that we use from those different categories, and drumming kind of fits into each one of them based on uh, the rhythmic structure that I've designed for the Sonic Energy Tour. So I'm incorporating a lot of that. I call it the healing power of the drum into the Sonic Energy Tour, but we've also started to incorporate other instruments. You've brought your singing bowls, your crystal singing bowls. We've brought hand pans. We've brought tongue drums. There's been a lot of, we always welcome melodic instruments, even though it's listed as a music and movement. People think about it as a drum circle. We're really encouraging any instruments that want to join. If you want to bring a guitar, or you want to bring a kazoo, those can provide healing for people in different ways, and we'll always find a way to fit in. We've talked about incorporating the labyrinth area to highlight some of our sound healing instruments simultaneously while the drum circle is going on. But people would be able to meander back and forth. They'd be able to figure out whether they wanted more from the quiet instruments or more power from the drumming. And maybe we'll even use some of those instruments to be interactive. But all of this comes together in how we restore the body's balance. Uh, I don't start my day off with drums. I start with tuning forks. And the tuning forks are specific frequencies. We know the body vibrates at a standing resting position at about 16 hertz. And these two tuning forks are my body harmonic tuners. So uh, uh, the C is 64 hertz, 64 cycles per second. The G is 96 cycles per second. And the space between is what's more important. So sometimes I'll start with one on my chest plate, one on my cranium, and I can actually feel that connection. Well, the connection is 32 hertz, twice what the body is. And these instruments, as well as the singing bowls, were used in cultures, particularly like Tibet, Nepal, India. They were used to rebalance and retune the body. So if you had pain or sickness or disease in a certain place of your body, your doctor may prescribe a certain frequency. And they would say to play that frequency as often as possible, as long as possible. And the idea is that the vibrations from the instruments penetrate the body and eventually create that balance, that the out of tune frequencies in the body that are causing pain or causing disease begin to vibrate back in the correct tune. And so that's why it's so important to understand the chakra energies, what frequencies affect different places in the body. We do select instruments that are based on this healing power. Those are our healing tools, and they're probably I've probably spent more time selecting instruments than most people. I'm obsessed with that, finding the perfect instrument. I was fortunate to have a stint in a couple of stores of music retail. We were a custom drum builder, and then I had another music retail store. So I help people select their instruments. And one of the things that I got to do is, as we would order in these instruments from around the world, and we would import instruments from fair trade makers and builders in different places, I got to see the instrument developments, and I got to pick from dozens and dozens of the same instruments. So I could tell which ones had those positive qualities I was looking for, whether it was sound or the way that it made me feel. And that's what we kept in our Sonic Energy Tour collection. The instruments that I've amassed are the things that we're starting to bring into these circles.
Yeah, and I'll pause you right there because quality instruments is definitely what you should go for. If you're new to this vibrational energy and this presentation has piqued your interest to go further, definitely source out quality instruments. Jeff, I will call him real quickly to get some advice. But to go back and in summary to explain those that, who are new to vibrational energy, is the whole idea is just to recalibrate the body's frequencies, because vibrational energy and sound therapy is a holistic approach to healing that uses sound and vibrations to promote physical, mental, and emotional well-being. The theory behind this is that everything in the universe is made up of energy, and has a unique vibrational frequency, including the human body. When the body's natural vibrational frequencies becomes disrupted or out of balance, it can lead to a physical or emotional imbalance. So using quality instruments that speak to you personally and you can get into the state of mind that will promote the healing is the key here. With all of these complementary healings, it really depends on the individual's state of mind, and there's a process that you can go through to get yourself ready.
So Haley, part of the reason for this presentation was we wanted to show people how to bring some of this vibrational energy, or I call it vibrational wellness, into their home lives, into your daily life. We only meet at the park once a month, but there are so many ways, simple ways, that you can incorporate vibrational energy into your daily life. It could just be with adding an Om to your breath work or to your meditation, and finding the place in the body that that energy goes, and you can feel that hum, by adjusting the pitch. Even though that I'm not in music retail stores anymore, my nonprofit is connected to Meinl, which is the biggest percussion instrument maker in the world. And if you're interested in sonic energy instruments like the tuning forks or singing bowls or a handpan or tongue drum, I'm happy to connect and recommend those. If you're interested in a drum, the smallest drums, we have drums that start as low as $20. Average is like $50 to $100 on really a good quality drum. We used to have to spend a lot more than that, but with modern technology, we've come a long way to be able to offer these quality instruments at lower prices. And I basically have an endorsement discount with Meinl for the Viva Rhythm drums and Sonic Energy Tour. And I try to pass that along to people. And so a lot of the times I can find the best instruments for people, and I can also save them a little bit of money instead of trying to search online and not knowing exactly what you're buying. The other thing is I meet people all the time and let them play the instruments. If somebody's interested in one, we'll meet and try it out. That's the best thing, is hands-on experience, and you just can't replace that with any videos that you watch online or
Mhm.
reading about instruments. And like you said, It's really important to have the right instrument, because when you make a sound, you're actually sending that sound not only into your body, but you're sending it out into the universe. And I really believe that every note that we play goes out into space until it finds the place that it's needed. It wanders around a little bit until it finds the ears uh, to enter, or uh, the healing that it needs to find in that place of the body. When I showed where I put the tuning forks, even though I can feel the vibration centrally located there, I can actually feel it go to places in my body that need it at the time that I need it. So I'm happy to share more about that with people if they're interested, how to bring more vibrational wellness into their daily lives.
And our mind is such a powerful tool for our well-being and healing of any kind. If you can make friends with your subconscious and act consciously and empower yourself to, you know, take advantage of these modalities to your benefit, find what relaxes you the most, find what makes you feel connected to a community or something greater than yourselves, find something that lets your mental health thrive and your emotional health feel supported and comfortable being vulnerable. It's all about how you can be the best version of yourself. And all of these things that we're sharing and exposing to are just invitations to know yourself more and to be a better version of yourself, or more authentic version of yourself, because everyone deserves to be a happy, healthy human. So
A lot of
you've
the
got the
time,
Sonic Energy Tour, and I have gone to it a couple of times, as well as several different sound immersion events. And for me personally, it is such a treat to get invited to some of these experiences.
well, we would like to invite everyone. Maybe you should tell them, we don't like to put any prerequisites on how someone is coming in, but there are ways that you can prepare. The mindset that you accept that invitation is very important. And so this slide tells us a little bit about how you can prepare for a sound immersion.
Mm-hmm. So going back to my personal experience, I felt so excited to jump into like the gong experience that we had, that you've helped facilitate at Unity of Greenville, as well as the supersonic. And I do myself just a personal, session for just myself. And that's something that I feel comfortable with. So my mindset is primed for receiving a benefit. I'm open to the possibility of a benefit. And then I take a time to just take an inventory of my internal systems. Am I overwhelmed? Do I know why? Am I easily agitated? Am I thirsty? Am I my back hurt? Let me just take an inventory of what's going on with me first. And then I can move in and decide, well, do I want to have a prerequisite, or do I want to have an intention or an expectation, or do I want to just be open? There's no right or wrong, just what works for you in this moment. And then while I'm in this experience, whether for myself or attending one that someone else is facilitating, I just want to try to stay present. I'm not going to put judgment on myself, because it's hard to be present sometimes, but the goal is to be present where my feet are and focus on my breath, relax, and just experience, as I said, with an openness there. Enjoy for how as long as you could be grateful for. And then afterwards, you get the opportunity to take inventory again. You just went through experiment. I was agitated before, but now after 90 minutes of listening to gongs, I feel great. I'm ready to sleep. I'm ready to take on a new project. I'm ready to do something. Just notice the difference between A and B. And if you find something that works for you consistently, then celebrate, because that's something that you can go back to and count on.
So that Sonic Energy Tour that you're talking about, the Supersonic Sunday that I do on the last Sunday of each month at Unity, uh, the most common response that I've heard lately, it doesn't come at the end for the reflection that I talked about. People will call me or text, after a day or two, and they say, Jeff, I had the most incredible sleep of my life. I've never slept that well before. And I just kept hearing this over and over, and particularly after the gong bass. And uh, the gongs really get the body shaking up. All of these sounds that we're talking about affect the body on a biomolecular level. We know from seeing those slides of the immune system boosting. But recently, there's been some clinical studies done actually right after a gong bath. blood slides taken, and you could see that the cells were coagulated. They were not very active. You could see more signs of bacteria. Then 20-minute gong bath and another test, and you could see the cells darting around on the slide like they were on a mission, and not as much, almost no signs of bacteria on the slides. We're not exactly sure about all this yet, but this is what the Sonic Energy Tour is doing. It's based on ancient theory or ancient practices. And then we're just starting to approach it with modern science and trying to figure out what do these frequencies actually do in the body. We know that they're having a healing effect. And yes, this is kind of my call to action is we need more help from the medical field to help us design some clinical studies, increase our data. I just like to show up and play drums or gongs, or I'm kind of a performer at heart, and I don't come from a medical background whatsoever. As Haley knows, I'm also not as organized as I should be. She did a wonderful job putting the slide presentation together, and I need some people that can help organize some of this research. We know it works. We're connected with people that are sharing bits and pieces from all around the globe. And how great would it be if Greenville released some studies that really showed some tangible benefits that we can share. We say that it boosts the immune system. We say that it reduces anxiety. Those are kind of obvious things, but there are things that are happening in our bodies when we're subjected to these healing benefits or the vibrational energy that I think is beyond our spectrum yet. I don't even think that we can comprehend the healing power of music yet. We know it's there. We know it works. We just need some help in organizing the data to figure out how can we present this better to other research groups or other people that we can share these ideas and a protocol. That's probably the most important, is designing the protocol. How much of the low frequency do we need? How much of the high? What is our volume? What is our perfect volume level? Should we continue to do it outdoors, or does it have a more resonant effect indoors? Proximity to the sound. All of these things need to be taken into consideration. And I love to talk about it. I love to get into the research, and I'm just looking to connect with more people that are interested in learning. Let's drum together and we'll figure it out as we go.
Right. You don't have to overthink it, but I agree with you that if we have a better insight of what's going on, we can design interventions and protocols that give us the best chance for a wider audience. It's easy to get people out in nature and play drums, but as I was digging down into the medical studies and seeing what I could pull for this presentation, as we both said, there's a lot of old data and a lot of small groups, other than the meta-analysis that definitely said, hey, music therapy works. We're still talking, less than 200, if we're lucky, of a group size. So yeah, I think if Greenville can get behind it, if we can get somebody to sponsor a clinical trial, I think that could open up a lot of doors for, easy complementary healing. It's something everyone deserves in an outpatient setting or an inpatient setting. There's a lot of opportunities to add as a complementary to what's already going on.
I've worked with an organization called Drum for Cures for about 15 years. Drum Strong was our annual event in May, and we did the last one last week, mostly because of funding. This was a large festival, a huge concert stage, and we had a drumming tent. The first few years that we did it, we focused on a 24-hour drum circle. And we did that because we were connected with people around the world. We had a teleprompter on either side of the drum circle, so we were literally drumming with people in Japan in the middle of the night, at midnight when it was noon their time. Or we were drumming. We actually had a group in Ukraine. We had groups all on really on every continent, but there was on average about 7 million people drumming. And some of the research that they did with their cancer patients talked about just so much beyond the obvious anxiety reduction. They really talked about uh, such a positive experience, and it's more than just about the drumming. When it's facilitated, it's a comfortable environment for everybody. People are free to play what they want, to move how they want. You walk away with that positive attitude. You take it into your next day, and it's kind of the opposite, or well, it works just like the chronic stress. If you let the chronic stress keep building up, then it's going to lead to something very detrimental. And you kind of get into that downward spiral of how do I get out of this? But the same
Yeah.
thing happens with positivity. If you add a little positive rhythm to your day every day, then it does have a holistic effect to your whole life, your whole quality of life.
I'm getting a little emotional and grinning ear to ear because I'm looking at the picture of our music and movement. And not only are people smiling, but they're looking at each other smiling. There is human connection happening with drums in their hands and kids running around and silly girls on the right just dancing and giggling. That's Naya and myself dancing with ribbons. And at the end, she said, God, this is a long time. I've been moving this whole time. And it's right. It's over an hour of easy fun exercise with colorful ribbons and a dancer drum background. So please, thank you guys for including us in this cancer prevention and wellness series. Please come and visit us the last Friday of every month inside the Amphitheater at Cancer Survivor Park. We start at 5 p.m. and we go until we started a Facebook group page just to help keep everyone up to date with weather changes or just what we're in the mood for making the theme that month. So you can scan that QR code and join our Facebook group. If there's any specific questions after something piques your interest, you can find Jeff at drumforwork.com or send me a message if you've heard of the community center that I've been playing around. We're 200 acres adjoining DuPont State Forest, and we're leaning into vocational and just having fun outdoor experiences and activities for people to let their inner child out and connect in nature. So, Jeff, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, Drum for Work was never really meant to be my business name. Drum for Health, Drum for Life, a lot of the ones that I was sending out to my website designer were taken at the time. And he finally just told me, just tell me what you do. And I said, well, I drum for work, but I mostly have fun. And I love what I do. Some people have to go to work every day. I get to play. I mentioned the corporate team building. That can be, pretty in depth. A collaboration usually between myself and HR. What does the company need? But I also do artist in residencies. This week I'm working with second graders at Campobella Grambling School. Every week I go to a different school. My schedule stays full of those this time of year, but I started a lot of these community programs because I realize the healing power and we need to offer it to give back. So I also promote it in the schools. That's why we're having kids show up, is they're saying, Mr. Holland had so much fun at school, and they're telling their families to come. And I have to go back to when we started Our World Festival. That all started just around the corner, just on the other side of the bridge in Falls Park, right behind the governor's school. There was a picnic shelter. And from about 2010, we started there about 2005 to maybe about 2016, I think was the last one. The peak years from about 2010 to 2015, we were hosting retreats, we were hosting workshops, and on a Sunday afternoon, which we were playing back then, sometimes we could have up to 1,000 people come by within a couple hour block to drum with us. Some would sit and just watch. They brought hula hoops, they brought all kinds of poi and other movement things. So it's not just about the drumming and the rhythm, but the rhythm brings us in. And then, we just like to help keep the rhythms going. So anything that I can do for you personally, if you want to email me, specific questions or about instruments or some of our other events, I love to talk about it. I'd love to share. and I hope to see you out there.
So Elsie, is there any questions? Nope.
There aren't. There aren't.
We must have answered everything.
All right, all in favor of coming to the next music and movement event, say aye. Aye. Thank you. It really is. It's something special. I've made friends. I look forward to it every month. I can tell. I mean, we've gotten a couple of regulars that just discovered us naturally walking through the park and decided to join. The grin on people's faces when they discover us, especially those that already like drumming and they realize they can have a surprise session. I look forward to it every month. Our next one is April 28th.
Yeah, somebody, I think they were riding their bikes through and crossing the bridge, and they took a picture, kind of an overhead shot, and shared it on Reddit the next day on the R Greenville page. And I think it just really inspired some great conversations there. And I saw another one a little bit after that. I think it was Twitter. The buzz is out. It's not a secret. Everybody's welcome, all ages, all experience. People can come with a serious intention, but we'll help them have fun while they're there and just help them, forget about whatever they may be going through at the time. It's just about inspiring joy and laughter and,
Mhm.
celebrating the moment, making every moment matter.
Yeah, and we're hoping to add some drum facilitation training here. So we have a little bit more breadth of facilitators to help support this for years and years to come, as it's a very low overhead community wellness promoting event that definitely deserves a spot on the calendar for many, many years.
And we're hoping that people will start drum circles in their in their workplaces or um, other communities. There was a new one from some people that came to drum with us in the park that just started one in Inman. So it's already starting. I looked at when we first started, Haley. It was the hurricane hit us on the first Friday or the last Friday in September last year. So our first one was October, and then it kind of got cold for November and December. We were still there, and I told everybody these are the seeds that we're planting and maintaining. Just being there each Friday shows our support, and so that's kind of like watering the garden. And then I'm looking at it's springtime, so everything's starting to blossom and grow, and I think this is going to grow into just a beautiful garden.
I agree with you. And we get gold stars for selling our music and movement event. Well, again, I want to just say thank you for all that came to watch our presentation. I hope you have a good night. And the next preventative and wellness series is May 11th. So
Keep
thank
your
you all.
events going.